And welcome back to News Center. Thank you very much for staying with us. It's about 10 minutes past 10. Yes, plus 10 a.m. Hoping that you're enjoying your Jamhuri morning. All right, so we want to continue with our conversation, but let's just show you a glimpse of what's happening at Kasarani Stadium, where the Jamhuri Day celebrations will be held. We have some pictures for you. Let's just have them on screen. And remember that we are expecting that President Uhuru Kenyatta is going to be leading Kenyans in the celebrations. As you can see, that's Kasarani Stadium, not too full as normally it would be, but hopefully as the time progresses, maybe Kenyans will be able to make their way there. I can see my colleague Patrick Amimo just there preparing. But let me just come to the studio. Your comment on that. I mean, it's actually empty compared to other national holidays or national celebrations that we've had previously. Yes. Don't you think?
You know what has been happening in this country is that the message given on all national days appears to be the same. You know, all messages, whether it is Labor Day, Madaraka Day, Jamhuri Day, Christmas, New Year, all of them is one message. You know?
Really? She actually raised a point similar to that.
So some of the people who want to go to stadiums want to go and see the
air shows and
what have you, and maybe the marching of the armed forces and so forth, and the band.
Yes.
You know, it's not so much about the message, right? And the reason why it may not be filled up now is because those events are not there yet. You know, so
what do you mean they're not there yet?
They have not started. You know, the Majeshis are not marching.
But normally around now, I mean, normally around 10 a.m. people are already streaming in. That has been the tradition.
And also Kasarani. Kasarani is a bit offside. There are some people in this country, customarily, who want to attend events. Nyayo Stadium and Uhuru Park, for example, are filled by 7 in the morning. You know, but a lot of people around Kasarani are not used to it because Kasarani is an athletics place.
But during the swearing-in ceremony, just about 2 weeks ago,
that was deliberate, I think. It was deliberate that a lot of governors brought the people in the night, the eve of the swearing, with buses and trains to the city. So they were there quite early.
I'd like to hear your thoughts, Dr.
I think I alluded to that. I mean, I don't think that us professors are invited, you know. And that is, I think, part of the problem.
You don't need to be invited. You can definitely
No. I think for me as a professor, I need to be invited. Because I need to be invited to the venue, not to the celebrations of the Republic. You see, I think that is the problem. The problem is that, first of all, the distance. And as I told you, you are away from the population. Yeah, you know, the major population areas in Nairobi are in Mathare, they are in Kibera, they are in Kangemi. Those are the major, you know, and those people have been disfranchised. They feel that they are not part of the celebrations. You remember what we talked about at the beginning when we were saying that national events have to be value-based. They have to be symbol-based. And you have to have a leader who converges, who brings all these values and how you believe in the symbols of the day, so that you converge around the culture of Jamhuri Day. And that is lacking, really. It has been lacking for a while in this country. So like for me, for example, just give me one reason why I should drive to Kasarani.
Right.
As he says, the content, I can receive it from
your television
KTN,
station at home.
And I am quite sure I can say half of it.
You can say half of it. You can anticipate what's going to be said. But coming to...
There is also something small, very small.
Yeah, sure.
That during the swearing-in ceremony, you know, something very uninteresting happened. That people went there determined that they should go and display their confidence in the president, right? And
that's his supporters.
Yes, supporters. But before 8:30, so many of them had been hurt because of the stampede that happened, and the police decided to disperse them, with the same traditional gas canisters, and that, according to me, will keep some people away because they thought we weren't supporting this, and instead we are now healing our wounds.
And talking about healing our wounds, let's put ourselves, as a Kenyan, of course we're Kenyans, what is it that I would celebrate about my country right now?
Yes, there is one thing I think people should be positive about. One, like we said there earlier, is that Jamhuri marks our solidarity, as a nation, as a society, that we have agreed to be formed into a republic for our democracy to work. Very good. That is something to celebrate about. Even if we were not going there for anything else, just to be in solidarity with the rest of Kenyans would be enough reason to be there, right? What the president is going to say and whatever other display is going to be given is supposed to be in support of that solidarity. The biggest problem that may occur is when they start telling us about our differences, the differences they are supposed to address. And by the way, Ma'am, it is this, that every Nation Day is supposed to have its own topics. If it is Labor Day, talk to us about employment and the wages, right? If it is Mandaraka Day, tell us about our self-respect and rule, right? When it comes to Kenyatta Day, we are talking about our patriotism. When it comes to Jamhuri Day, we are talking about our nationalhood and about our democracy. Now, if you went to Kasarani today, are we going to be talking about democracy? Are we going to be talking about the role of the citizens? Are we going to be talking about our determination as a nation called Kenya? If we are split down the middle, what is the president going to talk about this? In fact, I want to advise him. It is not good that you address your enemy or potential enemy or perceived enemies as people within your state, the state you lead, as people that are wasting your time. No. I mean, we cannot also afford to say that we shall talk to Raila after 2022. It is not fair, because all you are saying is that you are dismissing Raila's supporters. People should be welcomed. And it is in welcoming that people kind of feel accommodated and therefore kind of dilute their positions, and their stands. And that way they can be able to say, yes, the president saying something nice, which we should be able to emulate, and so let's work towards that program.
Right, but at the same time also, we've gone a bit political, but it's okay. It's fine. But also, let's talk about Uhuru Kenyatta. How can he then, at the same time, like you're saying, give dialogue, whichever kind of dialogue, that is needed, a chance, but also at the same time stamp his authority as a person who, has been sworn in as the president of this country? How does he draw that balance?
That's a difficult balance. That's a difficult balance, and it's a difficult balance because of the character that you're talking about. If you are talking about Mandela, it will not be a difficult balance at all. Or even let me stretch it and say, if you are actually talking about Kibaki, it might not be a difficult balance. But I think for President Uhuru, it's a difficult balance just because of the kind of person that he is. He is not the kind of person who would call somebody who has abused him and say, yes, you abused me the other day, but can we have a cup of coffee? I think he needs to come down the ladder. He needs to come down the ladder, because if he has been sworn in and he's now the president of the republic, then he needs to really behave so. And if I may, and I think that will take quite a number of people who are level-headed, like Mheshimiwa here, to also put pressure on him, or advice, if you would. Because I think the other problem that seems to be is that if you are surrounded by your friends who think like you and who actually now think we have arrived and we are there, and so the rest of us should, the rest of you should just wait until 2022. I think that kind of thinking is not going to work. It is going to be very, very difficult for him if he's going to continue the way he's going to continue. I am hoping that I'll be pleasantly surprised that actually his message will be what Mheshimiwa, what Mheshimiwa has said: reconciliation, restating our constitutionalism, restating the democracy in our institutions, especially the ones that were created under the 2010. Telling all of us and assuring all of us that he's going to support those institutions to do what they are supposed to do.
All right.
Because that's the only way he can also succeed.
All right.
And of course, our president is a Republican leader. That's why we are celebrating Jamhuri.
Yeah.
And a Republican leader puts you with the people and not a monarch. You know, a monarch can do whatever he wills because he was born prince, he is king, will die king, his children will be princes, etc., etc., etc. The king can be able to predict that one of his daughters or sons will be president. Our president cannot predict who the next president is going to be, because it is also wrong to do that, you know, in a Republican atmosphere and where people are supposed to make decisions. After I've said that, I would like also to reflect as a nation on the powers and authority of the president. That first, he is the symbol of unity and the first defender of our constitution, our freedoms and our liberties, our rights, etc., etc., etc. He is the man. What this means is he cannot lift his telephone like this and wish to see any citizen in State House or in Harambee House or even openly at Jamhuri Park in an environment to meet and discuss, and that citizen refuses. Never. It is not possible. Whether it is Raila or it is Kathango or it is a Mandra in committee prison and the president wanted to meet him, that citizen will be either produced to him or walk to him, is driven to him, or he is picked by his own vehicles and limousines to bring him to where he wants.
Yeah.
And therefore, he is actually the person to move things for peace in this country. That he can be able to call Raila Odinga tomorrow morning, not necessarily to come and talk about another election, but for him to listen to Raila directly about what is it that Raila do you want, my friend?
All right.
You know, can we work together? After all, they have worked together
before
as prime ministers, you know, deputies and what have you. Kwani walifanyiana nini? We want to see them talk, man, so that our country can. Let me just reflect on one small thing.
Yeah, very
small.
I just want. Sorry for that. I just want you to hold the thought. We just want to touch base with what's happening in Kasarani, but then we'll come back to continue with the discussion. All right. So I'll bring in my colleague Patrick Amimo. Patrick, good morning. So talk to us about the atmosphere there, the Kenyans who've poured in, then their expectations for this Jamhuri Day celebrations.
Good morning, Betty. At the Kasarani Sports Complex, already Kenyans have started streaming in to witness the 54th anniversary of Kenya's independence, Jamhuri Day. This particular day is so critical and special to Kenya in that it is the day that we got our independence 54 years ago, and that time we saw the first administration was grappling with the fight against disease, ignorance, illiteracy, and poverty. Those successive administrations we've seen they've come on board to ensure that these particular things that did ail the country then have been tackled, and we've seen at least positive changes from all successive administrations. They've ensured that at least the poverty levels are coming down. We've seen literacy levels have risen to over 70%, and also we've seen that there is there are also governments that have attempted to ensure that there is a job creation, though it's still, we still have a lot to do on that particular spectre. We expect that the president will be here at probably 11 to kickstart this particular program officially. But as it were, the crowds are not as many. I think people are still streaming in, given also the location of Kasarani. Kasarani is a bit far removed from those areas, and accessing the area via transport is a bit hectic. And I think maybe as the day goes by, we'll see at least crowds fill up this stadium, which is a 60,000 capacity stadium. Remember, this time we expect also today during these festivities the president to inspect a guard of honor, which will be mounted by the Kenya Air Force, and also they'll be given that opportunity to display their colors. And also they've lined up various entertainment groups. So those who have come at the stadium already, they are being entertained to various artists are entertaining them to various traditional songs, and also some of those acrobatics. We witness some groups come and do some acrobatics. So that is what is happening here already at the stadium. Some of those dignitaries have already checked in. Members of our diplomatic corps, they are already here, just checking in ahead of the president and his deputy president's arrival here for the official start of this particular function. Betty?
What are we expecting to be really the speech of the president? This is going to be his first state function since he was inaugurated as president. What are we expecting him to tell Kenyans this time round?
Indeed, today we expect the president to have at least his speech will be a bit longer than in the past, where he was acting, where he had not gotten that particular substantive position. But today, as he speaks, he will be speaking as the head of state. We know 2 weeks ago, on November 28th, this particular ground, he was inaugurated for the second and last term. And also during that time, we saw him promise that borders should be open across. He was pushing that idea of Pan-Africanism, saying that African countries should open their borders, and he said Kenyan borders were open to all African citizens who could come to do business in the country. It is a subject that really attracted mixed reactions from a section of Kenyans. We saw then the president did promise that that idea, the issue of unemployment for the youth, especially who at least 80% of the youth who are unemployed, he did promise that his administration was looking into the idea of creating at least 1 million jobs annually for these youth. We saw also there is another problem that the governments have been fighting over, that is affordable housing. Many Kenyans, especially in Nairobi and other major towns, are living in squalid conditions, especially in the slums. And there is an indication that the government has been promising to improve the housing conditions. And we saw the government say that they are targeting to have at least half a million new housing units constructed each year. And we expect if that could be the position, then the building and construction industry, I think the government should also give some incentives and ensure there are waivers in that particular area. The other issue that we expect him to talk about is the free day secondary education, which money already 26 billion shillings was that budget has been set aside. We saw that particular budget was passed by the 11th Parliament before we went for the elections. Already 26 billion shillings set aside for the free day secondary education. So we expect when the schools reopen on January 9th, that will be one of the things that the president will be talking about, and how also this one comes with a challenge, because the Ministry of Education has spoken about 100% transition rate, and you expect when students will be joining Form 1, there is a challenge on those extra classrooms to construct for the many students that will be transiting to secondary level. There's also a challenge of employing teachers, and already there is word out there that 50,000 new teachers should be hired to accommodate the students who will be joining secondary schools. There is something to do with the SGR. You know, the first phase is already the SGR did get to Nairobi. This is one of the Jubilee, the Vision 2030 flagship projects, which the Jubilee administration is trying to implement, and already it is at Nairobi, having used 327 billion shillings. So we expect the second phase to up to Naivasha, where we have a dry inland depot, and also from Naivasha for it to proceed to Kisumu and to Kisumu city at an extra, another. Those talks are already, the government is getting into negotiations with the Chinese private bank to sponsor that stretch of the SGR. So it's one of those projects that the Jubilee administration has been talking about already. The other issue that we maybe will be in the president's speech is to do with the issue of terrorism. We saw terror, we are still fighting terrorism, and we are yet to win that battle, and he will be expecting to address that issue. Betty?
All right, Patrick Amimo there reporting from the Kasarani Stadium, where the Jamhuri celebrations will be taking place. He's going to be keeping us updated on what transpires there. Coming back to my studio discussion, remember that I'm joined by Njeru Kathangu, who is a veteran politician, together with Dr. Kitiabi Kiti, who's a governance expert. Let's continue with our conversation. And you were making such a valid point, really, on where we are and, how to propel the country forward.
Yes, better what I was saying is that Kenyans take the cue from their leaders. And what Kenyans have been expecting, majority of them, not the die-hard extremists, both sides have got extremists that you cannot be able to control, who think that they can commit suicide for them, right? Those are not the people I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ordinary Kenyan whose vision and business is to see that his children or our children grow into women and men of his dreams, right? Those people take cue from their leaders. If today Uhuru and Raila were going to be seen taking tea together, whether they talked to us or they didn't, Kenyans would take that is the form they would like everybody to be in, right? And so we should not look at what Raila maybe has said in public, because both of them have said very bad things against each other. But what is it that President Uhuru is saying? That Raila has not recognized me as his president, and therefore I cannot meet him
or talk to him.
At least to discuss about electoral reforms. After all, I've been declared president, so why do we want to talk about electoral systems again? Good. That is what Raila said in public. But what other things have they said in public against Raila? So bad ones. But then we are also saying that a time comes when forgiveness must prevail. That whatever you have said, for the sake of our society and state and government, I forgive you. And let's sit down and discuss.
All right.
To give this example, just a small example, is that when Kenyans were so pushed, in 2001, and they had given up completely, and they thought that the despot would continue, etc., we pushed Kibaki and other opposition parties to sit together, say nothing, but let Kenyans see that they are uniting or united, because none of them would sit with the other, right? And so one day, Orengo and I were leading what we call the Muungano wa Mageuzi, and we were preparing a national conference at Limuru. And so we pushed Kibaki and Ngilo and Wamalwa to sit down somewhere. And we agreed the day after tomorrow, Serena Hotel. And they went to have their tea there, right? And they did not tell us anything. They just took a photograph and was splashed. And people said, thank you very much. Bas. That is what I would like President Uhuru and Raila to do.
Interesting. Doctor, coming to you, and I'll ask you a specific question coming from what he's saying. The responsibility that our leaders have in, pushing this country forward, because today's theme is Kenya Mbele, but that cannot happen if, we still have a political question or political differences, but also the fact that also the supporters also hold so cling so hard to either Raila Odinga or Uhuru Kenyatta. When Raila Odinga said, that they've postponed the swearing in, there were his supporters who came out and say, why. We were ready to go at this. Why
it
did
was
you?
actually, yesterday was a big issue about that.
Yeah. So how can they do that when still their supporters believe so much in the dream or in the cause that they think of this thing otherwise?
I think that the problem goes back to governance, and the problem also goes back to who is really leading as a leader. You see, the issue of the elections, I think that from the Supreme Court to everything, it is no doubt that we have a problem with our electoral system.
Yes.
I mean, in fact, from the Supreme Court ruling, we had a fraudulent election. Now, I think what needs to happen is that someone from government, which is the president, needs to say, yes, I accept there were these mistakes, and I am willing to correct those mistakes since I'm now the president. You see, once you go into the middle, then the other person can also come. And by the way, it cannot be, the onus cannot be on Raila. The onus has to be on the president. And I think the president, if I was advising him now, I'll tell him, I don't think that it is wrong for him to come and talk about elections. He can come and talk about how he will make the next elections better. You know, it is a problem we have had. It is a problem that even was not solved by the 26th repeat poll. In fact, when I was listening to the judgment yesterday, I was actually more confused. Now, as a citizen, I was more confused. But as an intellectual, I was now trying to match what they are saying and what they said in August, in September 1st. And I was totally confused. So you imagine if I'm confused. So what these two need to do is that the president needs to say, now that I'm sworn in as president, these are the mistakes that were done, and this is how we are going to resolve those mistakes. In any conflict, you must come with a solution. You cannot come just with a headline saying, I am coming to talk, but I'm not talking. So you see, if you say I'm coming to talk, and this happens even at personal level, you accept to go to a meeting, but when the issue that is really the problem is raised, you say, I am leaving. So I think that is the problem, and the onus is on him to do that. But just coming back to Jamhuri Day, and I think my colleagues will kill me if I don't talk about the economy. I think the problem is that people don't, every human being is special. And I'm talking from economics point of view, that you like to have money in your pocket. I would like to go to Kasarani with my family with having a spending power. So I'm taking money from my pocket, I take Uber or whatever it is, we go there with my family and we enjoy.
Lunch.
Yes. So the problem has been, with all those projects that your reporter has listed, the problem is, you and me and Mheshimiwa here still don't have money in the pocket, money to spend. Not struggling to pay rent, not struggling to pay bills. Money that I can now take a taxi and go to Kasarani. I think that is where the problem is. That is where the problem the president needs to address. How is it that he has done all these things that he has done, but he has not put money in the pocket of Mwananchi?
All right. Interesting.
Now, about the people and their leaders.
Yes, the people and their leaders.
That is where we are. That it is not everything that Uhuru says that Gikuyu support, that Meru support, that Embu support, that Nairobians support, and so forth. Those that we can say are the main sections maybe that support his presidency. It is not everything that Raila says that is supported by the Luos, either from Kisumu or from Bodo or from wherever it is. It is not everything they say that the people support. Right? Nevertheless, when it comes to electing the leader, many of them will elect the leader not because of what good he does, but maybe to be associated with their own lot. Right? And given opportunity, they would like to see those characters changing to maybe more accommodation, etc., etc., etc. For example, what I am saying is this. When we are talking about riches, and that is where she is. Yes. It is true that the Jomo Kenyatta house, has got more properties than anybody else in this country. Would properties qualify somebody to be leader in a country? You must be having other capacities, not the shilling, right? But they also must remember that every Kenyan requires that shilling in the pocket, because none of them will come to educate their children. They must be given the environment to create their own riches, right? Which environment sometimes is missing, you know? And just to talk about AGR, every time my brother, Deputy President, stands anywhere, he talks of electricity, the SGR, maternity, what have you, the roads, etc., etc. We know it. And for a long time, the World Bank, IMF, and the multilateral financiers take that kind of infrastructure, the rail, the road, etc., the bridge, to be able to enslave nations. How? Because when they give loans, because we are building all these things on loans, you know, that we took from Kebake at 1.8 trillion. Today, we are saying we are indebted to 3 or 4 trillion shillings that my great-grandchildren are already indebted to 100 years, you know, and they have not been dreamed of, right? And then so what we are saying is this, that it is important even as we open the country, you know, on these mega roads and rails, let us remember that all of us must be alive before that road or train arrives. I must be there to witness it. But look at the Thika highway. From here to Thika, the highway is very nice. But as you drive, just look on the signs and see what happens, right? And people are fighting over maize, you know, roasted maize. People are fighting over sweet potatoes because they haven't had lunch, they haven't had meal for the last 1-2 days.
Yes.
But every day, they are looking at watching about 100,000 vehicles pass through, right? That, for me, is what it means. And the rich man has taken all the plots along the road. So the plots are lined with the skyscrapers. So you actually may assume that is the Kenya you have. No, the Kenya you have is in the cartons, you know, the slums, because all these people are guests in this area. They are strangers. They do not know the place. And those that occupy this area, indigenous or natives of that area, have been pushed to the periphery where they live in slums.
Wow. Couldn't have been put better.
Yeah, exactly.
And I want to bring another angle to this conversation. And earlier this week, we were talking about, you know, we're waiting for President Kenyatta to unveil his list of cabinet nominees. And everybody was saying, you know, it better have the face of Kenya. But, you know, there were questions about, is that really what inclusivity means? Because I am Kamba and we come from Mwingi, the fact that maybe I will be you know, nominated as the CS for, say, education or something, does that really mean that my people back at home will be, that their lives will improve? Or is inclusivity about going to the grassroots level and seeing what Kenyans actually need? Not because I am a CS somewhere, but because, you know, that is the whole, that's what's happening across the country, no matter where, you know, you come from. I don't know what you have to say about that.
I think for me, that has been really the greatest problem, and the greatest problem of the Uhuru administration is that they have selectively used some sections of the constitution to do what is not right. I think that the issue of regional balance, I don't think that the constitution says that you have to do regional balancing at the cost of Mwananchi. In other words, you bring in a person who has no competence, who is not adding any value, who is not going to help us. But because you are doing regional balance, then you get this one person who actually comes to do nothing. Instead, costs the Mwananchi. I think the thing is that the cabinet should be put together professionally. And we are enough Kenyans who are educated and who are competent, because it's not just the education, who are, and also committed to service. you know, who are able to serve the nation without necessarily having to come from a particular region, and then you disadvantage the Kenyans. So it has to be put together professionally.
All right.
And then, and on top of that, it has to be gender sensitive. And I think gender balanced rather. And as Mheshimiwa said, we still are locked into this problem of saying that there are no women to put on the cabinet.
We are here.
I think the problem is there are no women that you like to put on the cabinet.
Yes.
But if you're really looking for a competent Kenyan, one who wants to serve, one who is committed, there are numerous women out there.
All right.
And that's what he needs to do.
All right. So we'll come back to your studio, but we want to cross over to the Kasarani Stadium. I understand that Patrick Amimo is lining up a few leaders. Let's listen to that.
Kwamba ndiye aliyekupatia ule ushindi wa falsa. Tunashukuru kwa muziki huo na hype ya